Okay, since it falls to me to introduce our final speaker, Jack Monroe.
I'm a little bit shorter than all the other speakers, but that's okay. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm a girl called Jack, I'm 25 years old. The Daily Mail described me as a cross between Delia Smith and Yvette Cooper, but with tattoos, make of that what you will. And I'm here to talk to you about austerity. For those of you who were in my workshop, this is my speech, so it was meant to be without the migraine. Thank you to the person who gave me the migraine pills. According to our Chancellor George Osborne, austerity is working. It's a line we hear again and again about how the benevolent coalition government led us out of the recession with their lovely dainty hands, their master plan of austerity. In his autumn statement, he gloated that the hard work of the British people was paying off. But for who? Because apart from his pals at Wonga, who lend people on average £500 at the end of every payment, people who can't get loans in any other way, people who will struggle to pay that off. And apart from the MPs who take every photo opportunity they can to snip ribbons of their latest local food banks in their constituency, who's it actually paying off for? Certainly not the 13 million people currently living in poverty in the UK. And certainly not the 500,000 people that the Trust and Trust have given emergency food handouts to since April alone. And the Trust and Trust aren't the only food bank network in the UK, so there are many, many thousands more families than that 500,000 currently receive emergency food help. When I say poverty though, I'm often met with an onslaught of denial from people. We don't have poverty in Britain. We're one of the richest economies in the world. Poverty is for Africa. Poverty is for other countries. Poverty is for gross injustice and inequality inflicted by ruthless dictatorships that we normally go and trounce off to war with. We don't have poverty over here, we've got austerity. Over here, the sharp increase in the number of families living in hostels and B&Bs for more than 6 weeks at a time as a result of losing their homes. That's not poverty, it's austerity. And the queues of people lining up around their local food banks. It's not poverty, it's austerity. And the word austerity conjures up images of cosy frugality, as though we're all like living in a nice little snapshot of post-war Britain. You all remember the posters. If you're not old enough to remember them, you'll have seen them in your history classes. And I'm surprised they haven't reappeared in right-wing press to back up the Chancellor's claims with all the other propaganda that they put out. Eat less bread. Food is a weapon. Grow your own food. Dig for victory. Keep calm and carry on. Austerity is apparently missing days of meals, turning off the heating for 2 consecutive winters and every bloody day and night in between. That's not austerity, it's poverty. So let's call it by its real name. Let's call it poverty. Poverty is unscrewing the light bulb. Poverty is unscrewing the light bulbs in your home so you can't accidentally turn them on. Poverty is selling your son's shoes. Poverty is drinking the formula milk that the food bank gave you because you've got nothing else. Poverty is walking everywhere in the pouring rain with your 3-year-old in tow, into every pub and every shop in walking distance and asking them if they've got any job vacancies. And it's trying not to go red when the woman behind the counter says no. And you're not surprised she said no because you're a mess. Because you're dirty and your clothes are dirty and your jeans are ripped and you look like you haven't slept or eaten for days. I wouldn't have employed me. I'm amazed that anyone did in the end. Because I didn't look like I could do a day's work, I looked like a mess. And poverty is taking that toddler home. Still soaking wet, still unemployed, a year later, still in the same old daily grind, but apparently you're a scrounger and apparently you're feckless as you go home to your freezing cold flat to not quite dry out of your soaking wet clothes, to give your son the last of the food that's in the cupboard and try to not shout at him when he tells you he doesn't want it. I don't want it, Mummy, he says. I want something else. Poverty is trying to explain to a toddler that there isn't anything else. That crappy can of chopped tomatoes you put over the cheapest pasta in the supermarket is actually all you've got in the cupboard. Poverty is getting up the next morning and giving your kid the last of the cereal with a little bit of water to mash it up and a glass of tap water to wash it down with. Poverty is when your son says to you, "Where's Mummy's breakfast?" And you have to somehow explain to a very young child that Mummy's not really very hungry, like Mummy wasn't hungry last night. Mummy hasn't been hungry for quite a long time. According to Michael Gove, me skipping meals to feed my son was reckless parenting. According to Edwina Curry, when I turned up to my local food bank after being referred by a children's centre, it wasn't because I needed it was because I was a rational opportunist. And according to George Osborne, when I slipped my wrist and popped all of the beta blockers, painkillers and sleeping pills that I could find in my flat, I woke up the next morning sobbing and throwing up on the floor, having miserably failed to kill myself in the same way that I've miserably failed to get a job for a year. I was doing my bit for the great British economy. Shit, isn't it? You get up the next morning, you jump in your cold flat, you jump in your cold shower, you take the bailiff letters from underneath your doormat and you just stick them in the kitchen drawer with all the others. You ignore your phone ringing because it's always going to be people asking you for money. You put long sleeves on, you pick your son up, then you go to the local food bank and you join that queue and you try really hard to just look like you're not falling apart. Because if anybody knew how you were living, and I can talk about it now, because, you know, I've got a job now and I'm all right, and if anyone came around my flat, my son's got a bed with a sheet on his mattress. I mean, that was a novelty, being able to buy a bed sheet. We're doing okay, so no one's going to take my son away now. But if anybody knew how we were really living, all the bits I didn't blog about, all the bits I didn't tell anyone, my son would have been taken into care. And that's one of the things that this authoritarian government wields over us. You can't complain too loudly about how badly things really are, because you will lose your children. And that's not their fault for cutting your welfare, delaying your housing benefit, throwing a bedroom tax charge on top of your already struggling family. It's actually your fault because you're feckless and you're reckless and you're a scrounger, you're a sherpa. It was my fault, wasn't it? It's all my fault. Food banks are often the only port of call for people who don't actually actively seek help. So what they do is they gather together the most marginalised and vulnerable people in the community, and they don't just hand out bags of food, they signpost you to other organisations that can help you. They've got domestic abuse specialists, benefit advisors, debt advisors, you know, all those things your local council used to provide for you before they got all those cuts. So what we should have, the underpinning of a decent society, a decent welfare state, is actually being propped up by charity. Yet I'm feckless and I'm a sherpa, and actually it's the government that's shirking its duty towards its children, towards each and every one of us. And I get angry, and I've been angry for about a year and a half, and I've ranted and I've raged on my blog and in the media, and I've got a lot of abuse for it. But do you know what? I finally realised it's not just me. It was on Tuesday, after asking a Tory party conference for them to set up an inquiry into food bank use and being told, yeah, of course, God, isn't this terrible? We just didn't realise we set up an all-party parliamentary group. And 4 months or however long it's been later, no one's done anything about it. I set up a petition because I was a little bit tired of waiting for people to act. But because I've been thumbscrewed so much by the attitudes of this regressive and ridiculous government, I didn't think that there was anything that I could do. Sure, I've got a column in The Guardian, I can rage to whatever their readership is about how shit it is to be a poor single mother. But actually, I could set up a petition and I could ask for things to change. So on Tuesday, that petition went live with a full page in the Daily Mirror. By Tuesday evening, 60,000 people had signed it. On Wednesday, it was on the front page of The Independent. On Thursday, I had that call to say that they were going to debate my petition in government. 2 days it took me. 2 days to get enough people to come together in the same place and go, do you know what, this is shit. Austerity doesn't work and we want to know the answers why. It wasn't just me looking for the answers. And that's one thing that is absolutely brilliant about this day and age. There's not much that's brilliant about this day and age, but the internet is one of them. Because when the Daily Mail tore strips of me for daring to put my head above the parapet and say that I was a Labour Party activist, it took 2 whole days and 2 whole sheets of their whatever newspaper to try and demonise me and make my story invalid. I had my right of reply instantly, because I have the internet. Because they can put out crap about me, and I can counter it in 10 minutes. And with the internet, I can reach 100,000 people to get that petition pushed through Parliament. Now, if I'm honest, I was looking for about spring. The WOW petition took a year to get 100,000 signatures, and I looked at that and thought, oh God, what am I even doing? What if no one signs it? What if I'm really on my own? What if I only get about 30 signatures? That would be really quite embarrassing. But no, we've got it. And on the 18th of December, I will stand up in Parliament and I will read this speech. And what I'd really like is, because the battle isn't over, it's not me, it's not down to me, I'm not a revolutionary, I'm not leading anything, I'm just the idiot that stuck her face in the paper and went, well, this is all a bit crap, isn't it? But I've got now, at last check of how many people have signed my petition, and there's more signatures on that petition in 5 days than there are members in the Conservative Party, which has been running for 200 years. So, but the first thing I'm going to turn around and say to that lot in Parliament is my gang's bigger than your gang. There are more of us than there are of them, but for so long we have been made to believe that their agenda is the only agenda, their alternative is the only alternative. Their cuts, their austerity is a medicine, it's not a medicine, it's a cancer. It's a cancer at the heart of what should ultimately be a society of community and solidarity, a society of people. I don't care whether you define yourself as working class, middle class, upper class, classless, class of 7B. Do you know what? We're people. And as people, we should be disgusted and we should be ashamed that any one of our number goes to bed hungry. That any one of our number has to beg the benefits office to reinstate their housing benefit that was stopped for some innocuous, ridiculous reason. That any one of us should feel like we can't speak up about the things that are happening in our homes and our friends' homes for fear that we might lose our children. That's decency, that is. Decency cares about whether its neighbour is going hungry. Decency cares about other people. And I think that one thing that we all share at our hearts as human beings is that we're decent, most of us. I discount Curry, Osborne, Go, Vet out and that, because they are not decent people. But I can rant and rage all I like, and I quite frequently do, and I haven't really stuck to my speech at all, which is a hazard of the job, really. But someone else quoted the Nelson Mandela piece that I was going to finish my speech with, and again, to those of you who were in my workshop, sorry, but you can't hear this enough, really. And this is an extract from the speech that he made in Trafalgar Square in 2005 at the start of the Make Poverty History campaign. And I am embarrassed to have to recite it now, because 8 years later we should not still be in the situation that we were in. There have been countless campaigns to end poverty, countless charity drives, countless numbers of people saying this is wrong in our country, but until now not enough of us have come together to say we want to change it, we want to challenge it. And he said, as long as poverty, injustice and gross inequality persist in our world, none of us can truly rest. Massive poverty and obscene inequality are such terrible scourges of our times in which the world boasts breathtaking advances in science, technology, industry and wealth accumulation. But millions of people remain imprisoned, enslaved and in chains. Poverty is not natural, it's man-made, and it can be overcome and eradicated by the actions of human beings. Overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity, it's an act of justice. It's the protection of a fundamental human right, the right to dignity and a decent life. While poverty persists, there is no true freedom. Do not look the other way. Do not hesitate. Recognise that the world is hungry for action, not words, and act with courage and vision. And I just want to reiterate some of the things that the other speakers have said. If you can change one heart, one mind, one person's Facebook status about immigration or welfare scroungers, if you can have one conversation, imagine what that conversation can do. Because a year ago today, I had one conversation with a friend called David about how shit my situation was and how much I wanted it to change. David put me in touch with our day-to-day lives. They rely on the fact that not enough of us will come together at any one time to challenge them. I reiterate, my petition in 5 days got more signatures than there are members of the Conservative Party. We are angry, but we have a platform for that anger. We can channel that anger and we can turn it into positive action. I want to know why the government's refusing to publish its DEFRA report on food bank use that they commissioned in June. It's now December, we haven't seen that report. I'm going to ask them if they'll publish it when I go to Parliament the week after next. So I'll leave you with Desmond Tutu. I love to quote great men, I really do. I love to quote great women too, but I just haven't today. Because food banks are a great thing. They are I'm not anti-food banks at all. They are a society in action. They are a neighbourhood coming together to meet a need that they've identified. It's a community saying, you need a hand, I'll give you that hand. But they shouldn't be necessary, because it's all lives. There is enough in the pot for welfare. There is enough in the pot for everybody to have a little bit and to have what they need. And the Desmond Tutu bit is that there comes a point where we need to stop just pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in. Thank you.